Hi everybody. Firstly, thank you to Christina and the Edinburg University Sustainable Development Association for inviting me today to present on behalf of Laff, the Latin American Foundation for the Future. And secondly, I'm sorry I couldn't join you to hear the previous speakers. I'm sure it was a very enjoyable and informative day. I'm going to talk to you today about the Latin American Foundation for the Future and the importance of sustainability in the NGO sector in Latin America. Laff is a UK-registered charity which was set up in 2007 and operates out of Cusco, Peru. So Cusco is in southern Peru, in the mountainous Andean region. We work with projects in the city itself and also in the Sacred Valley, which is about an hour bus ride out of the city. Sustainability is key to our mission of empowering vulnerable young people to build a better future for themselves. We are working directly with local partners listed here. Asowasi at the top is a home for boys who have been homeless or at risk on the streets. Casa Mantai, which means House of the Mother, in a mixture of Spanish and Quechua, which is the indigenous language spoken throughout Peru. Casa Mantai is a home for teenage mothers and their children. Often those who live in Casa Mantai are involved in legal cases of sexual and domestic abuse, and it's not safe for them to live in their own homes with their families. The Sacred Valley Project is an NGO which provides a warm and healthy home, 3 meals a day, and after school teaching to girls who come from rural communities in the Andes. They otherwise wouldn't get access to high school because often they live hours walk away from the nearest school, and often primary school access is also very limited. Their mandate is to empower female Indigenous leaders of the future. They live in the boarding houses, which are situated in 2 different towns outside of Cusco, between Monday and Friday, and they go home to their families on the weekend. When I went to visit the girls on a Sunday evening when I was living in Peru, they had just arrived back to the town from their families. Some of them had walked 4 hours from their house to the nearest bus stop and then had an hour or 2 on the bus to get back to Ollantaytambo, where the SVP house is. And all of this goes on at 3,000 meter altitudes. So this is really extreme dedication from these girls to get the education. And then many of them actually continue to go to Moscow, which offers scholarships for higher education. So this is continued educational opportunities to students from rural communities, as I say, often the same communities that serves the SVP girls. Moscow also works with Kente Textiles, which is a textile revitalization organization, which works with weavers in a variety of different isolated communities in the Andes to encourage the intergenerational transmission of traditional knowledge and bridge the gap in the commodity chain between producer and consumer. A lot of the textiles are sourced locally with weaving associations and trade unions, and are then sold in the international sphere as well as more broadly in Peru itself. So lastly, we work with Rua Sunchis, which is a Lima-based NGO which provides skill development and training for employment to young people in disadvantaged areas of the capital city of Peru. So with all of these partners, our goal is to lead them towards self-sufficiency through capacity building, vocational and technical training, income generation, and cost reduction strategies. Laff views sustainability as one of our key goals. In fact, something that makes us stand out, perhaps, when it comes to the NGO sector more generally, because, as you might know, there are many, many NGOs, hundreds of NGOs, working in the Cusco and Sacred Valley area, as well as, obviously, internationally. I've taken this list of 5 central points from our annual report, which just came out, our annual report from 2015 to 2016. So this was just published, you can access it on our website. I'd be happy to also send it to anybody who's interested. I have my contact details at the end of the presentation. So we work closely with our local partners and have a very detailed procedure for determining how we can lead them towards self-sufficiency in the long run. If we took on more partners, it might not be possible to retain this same focus on facilitating a sustainable approach and always emphasising independence in the long run for our local partners. Part of us being sustainable also obviously requires us to have the organisational capacity and financial viability to provide for our partners. So that means we have some volunteers dedicated to grant writing, others seeking out new donors, and also recruiting volunteers internationally and locally. When I was in Cusco, a lot of the local volunteers who go and help run the workshops along with our semi-permanent volunteers who are often there for 3 to 6 months. The local volunteers stay longer, and most of them were anthropology students in the local university in Cusco. Obviously, language ability is a key thing, and we try to make sure that all of the volunteers who come to Cusco speak Spanish. While I was in Cusco, I spent a lot of time reading over our youth participation strategy, particularly when thinking about the monitoring and evaluation of our vocational training workshops for the students. There's always, during the workshops, which often centre around self-esteem building, and creative games, posters. We had a yoga class, an art therapy class, team building, cooperation, all of these soft skills. So there's always an active learning environment in terms of getting out pens and pencils, often working out in a team how to take water from one bucket from one side of the garden to another side of the garden. So this active learning environment is really important. We want the children to explore, to be creative, to ask questions, and these are often more interactive exercises that are not possible or are not often provided for in the public school system in Peru. So this is an additional support and inspiration for the children. When I was there, we also looked at ways of carrying that through to the evaluation of our workshops, and came up with various questionnaires and individual interviews, and kind of conclusion posters, summary posters that the kids would do, to ask them what they liked about the workshops, how they were beneficial, and what they would like to see done differently next time. So we need to be efficient when it comes to long-term capacity building for all of our partners. And then because of this, we're always thinking of new ways to provide for them, and think about our own resources as a non-profit. We have one paid member of staff in Cusco, the International Partnerships Manager, and normally around 5 to 6 volunteers at any one time. We share a co-working space in the centre of Cusco, and we have various different other NGOs that we work with. We're part of a network of local NGOs who are almost all Peruvian, with Peruvian employees, and so we share ideas, and often there are kind of fora that we get together and think about grant writing and think about different ways of reaching the international community, and sharing donors or sharing stories of how we received more donors and donations. So there's a really solid network of people in Cusco, often who do have a sustainable approach and are working towards self-sufficiency in their own projects. We all work full-time, and one thing that I really liked about Laff in deciding to go to Cusco was that we think of it as career development internships rather than volunteerism, which doesn't necessarily have the same focus on sustainability, but that would probably be another presentation in itself. So now we have some photos of the workshops that we offer. This is with the Sacred Valley Project in Calca, and also in Ollantaytambo. This is the house, which is a purpose-built house. Here they are with Rachel, a former vocational training facilitator, who's running a workshop there. This is them cooking their dinner, getting prepared for their dinner, which they do after they've done their homework. I wanted to include as well one of the main projects that we achieved in 2016, which was Sacred Valley Project hiring one full-time employee to manage and administrate the bakery, Catriona Spaven-Donn. She says, in relation to facilitating the self-sufficiency of SVP and what the bakery can do, our goal is to gain enough traction to then become a template for sustainable business design that would support other projects similar to the Sacred Valley Project. In the bakery, which sources local coffee beans and hires local people to work in the kitchen and behind the till, the SVPs are also given business management workshops and the opportunity to work in the kitchen and get hands-on experience and vocational training. It also serves as a social enterprise, so all of the costs go back to the running costs of the dormitories, meaning that SVP is approaching or attempting to approach a self-sufficiency that will allow it to run without any reliance on international donors or grants. So the social enterprise is something that is really crucial and something that Laff tries to facilitate and encourage within all of our different projects. Within Casa Mantai, the House for Teenage Mothers, they've been running a leather workshop for some time now and have 2 different outlets in the city of Cusco with really high quality leather goods that are sold to tourists. So this is another really successful social enterprise that we're continuing to develop and think of new ways to get those products out and for the revenue from that to cover the running costs of the house itself. Another major contribution to our partners' self-sufficiency is reducing their energy output and creating a more environmentally sustainable model. So Laff was responsible for installing 3 solar showers at each of our Cusco-based projects. So that's Asulwasi down in the south of Cusco, which you can see on the right there, and this is one of the boys enjoying a shower. Or at least marveling at how the contraptions all work. And in Casa Mantai and Casa Moscow, we also installed showers. Given that it's mostly sunny in Cusco, not necessarily warm, then it's really effective way of creating an environmentally sustainable approach. I've mentioned a little bit about my own time at Laff, but I'd particularly like to tell you about Moscow, which was one of our partner organisations that I really enjoyed working with. I went on community visits, such as this one, to isolated villages which were all in the Cusco region, but some 5 hours away on a fruit truck journey on unpaved roads to areas that are very poorly serviced by the state. And of course, given that, women who are weavers and part of the local weaving association are often unable to sell their products and endure quite difficult journeys to get to the nearest town where they have the possibility to sell their textiles in the market. One community leader who belongs to another community that Kente works with, which is this one, which is slightly closer to Cusco. This, as you can probably tell from some of the textiles that you can see here, including the looms, this community has been producing textiles and selling them with the help of Kente for a long time, and they have really developed a very unique style because each community has their own unique textiles and products as well, and traditional knowledge. But the community leader from this village actually has now become a facilitator to think about sustainable practices and has gone with Kente textile representatives to other villages where Kente works to tell them about planting dye gardens and constructing greenhouses, which is something that's worked really well in this community. And this is so that they can have easier access to plants that they use for natural dyes in their textiles, because all of these colours come directly from plants and berries and other natural sources. Sometimes gathering these plants involves a day hiking to very inaccessible areas, and often the plants are becoming less and less available now. So in one community, we were helping the local weaving association construct a weaving centre, which looked out on a garden where they're hopefully going to plant their dyes and then be self-sufficient in terms of creating and continuing to create and facilitate intergenerational knowledge transfer. So there are grand hopes in this village as well that the construction of the weaving centre will lead to the establishment of a participatory and sustainable tourism network. As a side note, doing this work with textile revitalisation and hearing from local community members about their hopes for turismo vivencial, which means experiential, sustainable tourism, has been really important for me personally. Since leaving Cusco, in fact a few days after I left Cusco last September, I've been pursuing my Master's in Latin American Studies at Cambridge. And working with Laff and Moscow informed the topic of my master's dissertation, which is focusing on the impact of homestay tourism networks in Quechua-speaking communities in a region of Peru slightly south of where this is, but which also endures some of the same difficult living conditions and poor state provision, but is also revitalizing textiles, also the Quechua language, and it's very interesting the impact that tourism has on this, especially sustainable tourism networks, which is really something that also through social enterprises, Laff is trying to think more about and think about how we can capitalize on sustainability and the massive amounts of tourism in the city, while also reducing poverty. So I have a lot to be thankful for when it comes to Laff and the work that they do, focused as it is on participation, self-sufficiency, community engagement, and encompassing a sustainable approach to poverty reduction, education provision, and youth empowerment in general. So I just want to thank you for listening, and please do get in touch with me or Melissa, the International Programs Manager, if you have any questions or if you're interested in working with Laff in Cusco or also as an international volunteer, because both of those are options. We're always looking for volunteers, and particularly people who have an interest in sustainability. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you all today. Sorry again I couldn't be there in person, but I hope to hear from you with any questions that you might have. Thank you.